And welcome to The Verdict. Kent Myers sitting in place of my partner Mick Cornett, who I can tell you, I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear, will be back with us next week. Mick will be rejoining us for next week's show. Today we're going to be doing a show on a subject that affects everyone, man, woman, and child in the United States, and that is the Social Security system. Either you're covered by it or you're perhaps dependent upon someone that is covered by it. And the Social Security system is changing dramatically. It's having new pressures, new opportunities thrust before it at all times. And from time to time, we try to update you on what we call what's new with Social Security by bringing in an expert from the Social Security Administration, a public affairs specialist, Larry Jones, to talk to us about what's going on in the Social Security system. That's what we're going to be talking about today. I think you'll find it an interesting show, one that will affect almost everyone's pocketbook now or in the future. So stay with us. You're watching The Verdict. We'll be right back.
Every day America uses clean-burning natural gas instead of coal or oil is a day of victory for our environment. That's why Chesapeake chose to explore for natural gas exclusively, and we've never looked back. Because natural gas burns twice as clean as oil or coal, and reducing carbon emissions to combat potential global warming is every bit as urgent as cutting our dependence on energy imports. As America's #1 driller of new gas wells, Chesapeake is moving fast to find untapped reserves of natural gas here at home. It's the right fuel for America's economy and the fuel for a clean air future. We just happen to be early to see it so clearly. Chesapeake, natural gas wins the day.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Kent Myers sitting in for my partner Mick Cornett, whom I said will be back next week. I'm sure you'll be pleased to have Mick join us again. Today we're really genuinely thrilled to have Larry Jones back with us again for another visit to The Verdict. He is a public affairs specialist for the Social Security Administration. He's a native Oklahoman, grew up in Bethany, did his undergraduate work at Southern Nazarene University. Is a 23-year veteran with the Social Security Administration, and he's the fellow that when I need to know an answer, I pick up the phone and call. I know he'd probably just assume not everybody do that. There are other systems to use, but we're pleased he'd come and talk to all of you today about what's going on in the Social Security system. And welcome back, Larry. We're sure pleased to have you.
All right, Ken, thank you. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you. We're in our Social Security uniform.
That's what I noticed here today.
Well, I'm deep into the system myself, so I feel like I could be in the uniform. By the way, let's start out with something that has always puzzled me pleasantly about dealing with the Oklahoma City Social Security office, as I do from time to time, not often, but occasionally. If I have an appointment there in the office at hypothetically 10:17 in the morning, I always get kind of tickled that they give you an appointment with an odd number like that. But if you're sitting there in advance of that, at 10:17, somebody comes out and calls your name. That's about as efficient and pleasant a group of people I've ever had the pleasure of doing business with. Is that just Oklahoma City that I'm experiencing, or is that system-wide?
It is system-wide. We have certain processes in place that allow us to work well with the public, but What you're saying here is not really surprising. I hear this everywhere I go all over the Oklahoma City and the central Oklahoma area. The fact that our people are very good at what they do, and we have to stay on a schedule because we're dealing with so many people, hundreds every day. You'd be amazed at the people that come through. We have to have this kind of accuracy with what we do. So we're very proud of the track record that we have. Not surprising that you say this, and we're going to keep doing what we have to do as the baby boom generation comes on and for years to come.
Well, you're to be commended for that, and the people who run your office and the system generally. That makes it sure a pleasant thing. I'll tell you, come to my office for an appointment with me, it wouldn't be nearly that prompt, and there'd probably be no good reason for it either. Let's talk now about a topic that politicians talk about a lot, elected officials talk about a lot, and that is the solvency of the Social Security system. I guess by solvency we mean that more money's going out than's coming in, or at least that's the potential for the future. Talk to us about, as you did a couple of years ago, about the solvency of the system.
Well, that's a good subject to talk about, and on the way over here to record our program, I thought about some of the issues that are on our platter at this time, and there are a number of major issues that are coming down that we didn't really talk about that much in the first program, but solvency is the major issue. There's some good and there's some bad regarding solvency, Kent, and the good part is we have enough money today to actually handle our program and then some. We are actually operating at a surplus at this time. But with the baby boom generation coming on and the fact that these people are now beginning to retire, that is going to put a strain on the system. There are a couple of key dates that I'd like to bring to your attention today. One is the year 2017. If we go along with Social Security and we don't change anything, allow it to go on as it has been.
9 years from now.
9 years from right now. And when our annual report comes out shortly, that may even change. But 9 years from now, in the year 2017, we would be at a point where we would begin paying out more in benefits than we actually have coming in from this large working public that we have here in the United States. So,
And that'd be the first time that's happened, I take it.
Absolutely. We've gotten close on occasion, and Congress has stepped forward and made changes that they needed to avert this, but this is going to be a major issue in the United States as far as our economy is concerned. So that's one date. The second date would be 2041. Nothing changes. We go along as we have been, adding more and more retirees to our rolls. Then we would be at a point where we would only be able to honor about 75 cents on the dollar of our obligation. There's still money coming in from the working public. Obviously, we have a lot of children, grandchildren that are working at that time. But this is something that we have to avoid in the issue of solvency. So the good is we do have the money to meet our obligations now and for about the next 10 years. But after that, without changes to the system, we would be forced to radically change the system, which would adversely affect just about everyone in the country.
Now, as far as changing the system is concerned, that's not something the Social Security Administration itself can do on its own.
This is a congressional issue all the way. It has been for many, many years. The last major changes to address the solvency issue was in 1983 when Ronald Reagan signed the 83 amendments and brought us to where we are today in the year 2008 to a point where we've operated as well as we have. But I don't know that President Reagan or any of the others, particularly before him, could have realized the fact that we've got a baby boom generation coming up out here. A large number of babies that were born right after World War II and for the next 20 years. This has been the backbone of our country. This generation has been working. They represent about half of the population of the country as far as the workforce is concerned. And now this group of people beginning to age, beginning to retire, and as a society we really have not had the number of children that perhaps we should have had in order to ensure that we would always have enough workers compared to the number of beneficiaries that we have.
So births in the United States after this 20-year period of the baby boom went down considerably.
If I had my chart here today, I'd show it to you that we're averaging about 2 children per household. That's where we are. That's where we've been now for the last several years. In fact, since about 1964.
And prior to that, it was
during the baby boom years, and by the way, that's from 1946 to 1964. During that 20-year period of time, we had about 3 children per household. We were flourishing as an economy. The 50s were very good to the United States. In fact, the 1950s were the top producing year in our country's history as far as children are concerned. So those are some of the demographics that are coming into play here as we look toward the future.
Now, I suppose the alternatives are many. But the couple one can think of is you cut the benefits that are now being paid to those entitled to it and that will be entitled to it, or you increase the rate of contribution by the workers into the Social Security system, or some combination of those.
These are all possibilities for change, and of course, as you mentioned earlier before we went on the air, the fact that President Bush had an idea to incorporate this into some type of a private investment account, or at least divert part of those monies to that. And that didn't go. That got into the political arena and died a death there, as you will, although it may come back. But that's one of the changes for possible upgrading of the solvency issue. A number of other things, as you said, raising the tax ceiling is one of the possibilities. People today pay full Social Security on $102,000 of their income. That's a big figure, but there are many that make more than that. And when you get above that, there is no full Social Security matching fund, only the Medicare part at that point. That's a possibility. We've already upgraded the full retirement age to 67, or it's working that way now. For most boomers, it's going to be 66. There are a number of other changes that are going to have to be addressed. And the way I look at this is an issue that's going to have to come down to the wire right away. We've kept pushing it off and pushing it off. Let the next president, the next Congress deal with this. But we've reached a point now where we're, as you said, 9 years out from a solvency crisis. So we're going to have to make those changes, and I would point this out also on our program today, that changes that we would make of this nature would be those that would be affecting the younger people in the country, those that are in their 30s, 20s. They're the ones that are going to face the changes that we're looking at as we look into the future of Social Security.
So not to do something is basically, to coin an old phrase, mortgage the future.
Basically, you could look at it that way. Not to do something is to force us to cut benefits by the year 2041. Now, that seems like a long time away, and granted it is. But when you get closer and closer and closer to these critical dates, the changes that you would make at that time are more and more difficult. Yeah. So this is the time, obviously, to be working toward this.
Let's take a break.
Okay.
We're visiting with Larry Jones, the Social Security Administration, talking about what's up with Social Security. Let's take a break and we'll come back.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
That land next door was a mess. Take more than a lawnmower to revive that land. I heard the oil and natural gas people was cleaning up old oil sites, and it wouldn't cost us a plug nickel. Oh yes, sir, it was quite a revival. The whole church showed up, want to make a playground for the kids. It sure is a blessing.
Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Kent Myers and Larry Jones talking about Social Security. Larry, when we broke, we were talking about the baby boomers. Just about how many individuals does that encompass?
This is a generation that is tremendous in its power and its size, and actually its economic power as well. But right now we have about 78 million Americans that call themselves baby boomers. Most of these people were born in the 1950s. In fact, 1956 was the top birth year in our country's history. So obviously, this represents a massive group of people. As it relates to Social Security, this has been the backbone of our money for the last 30 years because this generation has been working and represents about 1/2 of the entire United States workforce. I mean, we're talking about 160 million Americans work today. About half of those are baby boomers. So that's some of the demographic background that gives you just an idea of just how big this generation really is.
Well, and it's going to just phase in, I guess, one year after another as these people reach retirement age.
If you want to look at it another way,
Yeah.
this is the way we look at it. The first baby boomer actually applied for Social Security on January the 1st of this year. And she was born in January the 1st, I think it was 1942, or 1946, that's the first baby boomer. And she was like born 1 second after midnight. And the way we look at it is this: that represents about 10,000 new age 62 people every day, today, tomorrow, the next day, for the next 20-year period of time. And we've never had that many people, at least potentially eligible for Social Security. So that's how we tie into this thing.
Yeah. We read from time to time about people generally deferring retirement for one reason or another. Maybe it's good health, maybe it's needing to work, whatever it may be. What impact will that have on ameliorating it, if at all, the strain?
Well, really, it would be speculation on my part to say what's exactly going to happen. Those 10,000 out there are eligible. And it's been my experience down through the years that most people that are turning 62 like to go ahead and apply for Social Security right away. However, we feel that the baby boom generation may be that group of people, as you said, that has broken the rules all along the way. They are healthy, they are large in numbers, may wish to work longer than prior generations. So if that indeed happens, then we're looking at a situation where we might not have that many applying regularly for Social Security. It's going to be something that we're looking at. The baby boom generation has been a group of people that has not saved as well as they should for the future, for retirement. They've had a lot of money. They just have used the money for various properties or possessions or whatever. So it's going to be interesting as we watch this unfold over the next few years to see just exactly how this generation reacts to the issue of Social Security. Of one thing I'm sure, they are going to require a lot from the system. They're going to need it, perhaps more than prior generations, and that's probably the surprising part of this whole thing.
This is a problem that's been with us for a while. President Bush and his administration tried to deal with it in a way that didn't get very far politically. And yet you hear the political campaign as it rages today. I don't hear any of the candidates talking much about Social Security. Maybe I'm just missing it in the talk about the economy and the talk about Iraq. Do you hear much talk in the political arena now about what individual candidates may want to do?
I think what I would be able to say in that regard would be no different than anyone else, basically what's out there. I think the idea at this point is to keep it rather general, but understanding that obviously changes need to be made. To say what any particular candidate is thinking about this in his private thoughts or her private thoughts would be pure speculation. But again, it's an issue that's looking at a 9-year time frame at our best before we break even. So it has to be on the front burner. Now, I've talked to some of our own congressmen and senators from the state of Oklahoma, and while they are concerned about it, they will tell you in private that they are probably more concerned about the future of Social Security than just about anything else on their agenda. You have to go with terrorism, things like that, and of course the economy is getting a lot of track right now. Mm-hmm. But they're going to say that Social Security is extremely important because they realize how many people it affects at this time.
Well, we know that something's got to be done or it's broken after 2017, I guess.
Well, we'll have to make some of the changes perhaps that we talked about earlier in the program, and they'll be looking at this. You mentioned the numbers that are involved. Right now we have about 50 million people that are actually receiving some type of Social Security. Most of those are retired, but we do have some widows,
and that's
children.
What, 25% of our population?
It's 1 out of every 6.
1 out of every 6.
1 out of every 6 Americans is on Social Security today. But with the graying of the baby boom generation, now we're looking at increasing those rolls to about 75 to 80 million, almost doubling, yet the workforce remains the same. Now that's a train wreck that's going to happen if something isn't done in advance to head it off.
it's a little more certain than other things that we hear about from time to time that may happen. I mean, this is not subject to dispute. I don't hear anybody saying everything's fine, leave it alone.
No, that's not happening. It's just a matter of when are we going to get together with real change. And the politicians are going to be basically in charge of this because we go with what Congress tells us to do. Yeah. Like you said earlier, we don't dictate any kind of policy with our agency. It's a matter of they say, okay, retirement's available at age 62, now you go get the claims, and that's exactly what we do.
Let me ask you kind of a related question. If we have this increase in people in the system, it's obviously going to require an increase in the size of your organization, is it not?
It is. We are taking on some new employees right now, but I'm sure as you understand in your position as a professional person here in the city of Oklahoma City and the area that budget is a big issue. We're not getting the additional dollars that we need to really beef up our system. We're hoping because of that people will begin to use more and more our Social Security website at socialsecurity.gov.
Yeah, let's talk about
that.
What can a person, we only got about a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Let's talk about what a person can do by just going on their website rather than going down to the office.
I realize that this is an issue that is basically designed to accommodate the baby boom generation because of the numbers. But a person can go online and apply for Social Security retirement, spouse's benefits, disability. There are a number of other issues you can do with our website, as well as get replacement Medicare cards if you're already on Social Security. With your PIN, you can go in and change your direct deposit, a number of things like this. I would encourage everyone to spend a little bit of time, maybe 5 minutes, on our website, look it over, and see how it can help you. That would head off many of the problems that we're facing as far as raw numbers that we're looking at in the very near future here.
Just real quickly, about 30 seconds. I saw something you sent me recently about debit cards becoming available to receive benefits.
This is basically designed for people that receive paper checks. About 30% of the nation get paper checks. If they will go with a debit card, which is going to be available this spring, this could save the government tens of millions of dollars over the long term in just postage costs.
So if our viewers today are receiving their Social Security benefits through a paper check, and Oklahoma, as I understand it, is included in the test group, they may be able to change to a debit card and make it easier for them.
They're going to get a stuffer with their check. It'll be safer. Yeah, it will be safer. There are a number of advantages. You can use it at ATM machines, at banks, to get the cash, even though you don't have a specific bank account of your own.
Larry, we are out of time.
Okay.
I want to thank you so much for coming. I hope our viewers have enjoyed this discussion of the Social Security system. You're watching The Verdict. We'll be right back.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Kent Myers sitting in for Mick Cornett, who will be back next week. Thanks to Larry Jones from the Social Security Administration. We'll have Larry back in a while to talk about other things we didn't get to talk about today. Next week, I can tell you that we'll have on as a guest the world's strongest man. Yes, Phil Pfister from North Carolina will be here to talk to us about some things he's doing. But let us know whom you'd like to see on our show. If you want to talk about visiting with Larry Jones, go to the Social Security website, which you'll see flashed on your screen there. And also go to theverdict.tv and let us know what show you'd like to see. For Mick Cornett, this is Kent Myers. See you next week.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.